Hello and welcome back to the channel, or welcome to the channel, whichever it is for you. And today we are back with Buffy now. Obviously this is late again, so Saturdays will now become the official day I do these videos, moving forward with any series that I might be doing. Hopefully we will get into the swing of doing it a little bit more often, so that you do get the videos on the day promised. This one being Saturday, so I do apologise for that ahead of time. You have seen my pop in a box subscription video already today, and we are continuing today with Buffy. Now, in the last video with the pop in the box, I did say that there was going to be 3 videos released today. It will just be 2. It will be the pop in the box and this Buffy video. So, what's the difference? If you have watched the pop in the box video, you have seen that I did say that there would be a little bit of a difference with this Buffy video. Well, today we are doing Season 4 and Season 5 in one video. Mainly because the original plan was that I was going to do Season 3 and 4 together and have Season 5 as its own thing. However, I noticed that Season 4 I don't really have a lot to talk about because it is my least favourite season. There are certainly certain points that I need to talk about during it, and I will keep to the formula. That's not changing, but that will be a quick, maybe 10 minutes of the video. Not going to be talking about it too much because, as I say, there is a certain part of Season 4 that I completely hate, and we'll get to that in the video. So let's start with Season 4, and of course we always start these videos with the good, the bad and the ugly. And today's good is the best episode of Buffy ever. Certainly one that, you know, it fits into this season well and does improve the season slightly, but when you look at the season overall, you just can't give it any higher of a score than what I've given it, which we'll get to later. But of course, the episode that I am talking about is Hush. Now, Hush is a brilliantly written episode because there's barely anything written. There is no talking whatsoever in this episode, and it's an episode that I absolutely love to watch. There's no doubt about it that this is probably the best episode of Buffy ever written, next to an episode in Season 5, which we'll get to later on in the video. But this episode is absolutely brilliant. And, of course, with the new formula that we did make last time, I am going to be giving you some trivia on the episode. So, first up here, all the trivia I get is on IMDb, that's Internet Movie Database. Anything that is not true, I apologise. I get it all from one site, it's just easier to access, it's right in front of me. We're going to do 3 or 4 of these, then we'll move on to the bad. Maybe we'll do 1 or 2 of the trivias and say why I hate that episode. I'll also put in why I love this episode, and then we'll get on to the very ugly side of not only this season but the series of Buffy itself. It's not the ugliest side of Buffy, but it's certainly a part of Buffy that I don't like. So anyway, Joss Whedon claimed that he wrote this as a challenge to himself. Critics had hailed him for his daft use of banter and the witty wordplay that he uses. So he decided to see if it was a good idea enough to write and craft a script which was largely, you know, taking away any dialogue at all, which is obviously a key point of the episode. There is barely any talking in this episode. Due to the monsters in Hush, the gentleman. Again, there's you know, when you are a writer and you are getting slammed for being a good writer, what else is there to do but to write an even better story without dialogue, the one thing that you are being penalised for, even though you are good at it. Critics for you. They'll eat you up no matter what. They don't give a shit. So anyway, yeah, key point of the episode, obviously, there's no going into that. The scene where Buffy objects to Giles' drawing of her with its wide hips was apparently improvised by Sarah Michelle Gellar. Okay, so obviously in the scene, they're trying to figure out about the gentleman, they're trying to figure out how to stop them, how to get their voices back, and there's a drawing of Buffy. I didn't know that this was improvised by Sarah Michelle Gellar, that she thinks, well, that drawing picture is a bit wide, and she sits there and she just goes, and it's really funny. I didn't know that was improvised. Thank you, Sarah Michelle Gellar, for giving us that. That's a nice little scene, a nice little tidbit in there. Last one, trivia-wise, for this episode. Two of the gentlemen, Doug Jones and Camden Toy, were able to sustain the creepy smile while on camera without any help whatsoever. That's a little creepy. I mean, I struggle to smile most times anyway. Mainly because my teeth are fucked. But that's quite interesting to me, that someone could actually keep that smile pretty much throughout the whole episode, or whenever they're on screen. I could never do that. I could never do that. He must have had a really good day or a really good pay or something. Well, these two anyway. Doug Jones is a name that you probably know out there. There's quite a few parts that he's played. But yeah, you know, it's interesting little tidbit. Something that's very weird, I think, in that one. Yeah, so that's all the trivia. Why do I love this episode? Okay, so Joss Whedon had to make a point when he wrote this episode. Something of which that I don't think that obviously is in the episode. There's no like disdain towards the critics. It's literally just proving to the critics that an episode can be made where it doesn't rely on a witty comment or, you know, all this sort of yap without a better term, basically. This episode does it right. You know, it's one of the few episodes where Joss Whedon gets down to business. He writes something that's really good, that's a good story, fits well in the Buffy universe. Just like an episode that we were talking about later in season 5, it's an episode that fits well in the universe, but is not necessarily one that you'd expect. More so with the one later on, you would expect this with a monster that takes away the voices so that they can kill, take these hearts and do whatever they need to do. It makes sense. And I love Joss Whedon for that, and I love this episode. This episode is absolutely brilliant. So we are going to quickly move on to the bad episode of the series. One that I think most people will agree with me is probably the worst episode of the whole series, maybe in general. You know, let me know in the comments down below if you think there's a worst episode of this one. Be a bad. I don't want to be talking about this much. I'm just getting the trivia up ready for you, give you some trivia tidbits. The reason why I dislike this episode is just that it feels like it does not fit in the mythos of Buffy. Some scientist bloke has made this beer a long time ago. Turns out that it turns all these people into dumb idiots, i.e. cavemen, and then you get Buffy, who just is drunk all the way through the episode. It's fun. Don't get me wrong, you can have some funny moments, but it's just a poor written episode. It's just not one that I like to sit through. It's usually one that's in the background. There's a few other episodes in the series that are like this. Thankfully we don't get a lot of these kind of episodes where it's badly written or there's bad storyline or what have you. But this one just doesn't do it for me, and that is the reason why it is in my bad. Yeah, I'll give you some trivia on this. So, while this is often called one of the worst by fans and critics, Joss Whedon has a different perspective. Oh, okay, let's see if this changes my perspective. It's interesting, every single episode contains an attempt to do something real and contains at least one or two lines that crack me up. These are quotes from Joss Whedon. One or two moments that genuinely shock me. I know there are ones that are not favourite among fans. And they are definitely ones where I scratch my head and go, you know, this seemed like a great idea on paper. But I never actually singled one out and went, here's a total failure. Okay, fair enough. Everyone always talks about the Frankenstein one, but I think it has some beautiful stuff in it. Yeah, that's another one that I was going to put in a lower end, but I actually quite like that episode. I actually quite enjoyed that episode. Quite remember that quite well. I believe the actor who played the zombie one was Abraham from Walking Dead, which is something that I didn't know until later on. But, you know, brilliant episode. Yeah, no, I agree with that there. And I think that the same can be said about Being Bad, where Buffy goes all caveman. A lot of people, you know, groan at that one, but he actually thinks that it has some lovely stuff in it. And, you know, he's not wrong there. There is some decent stuff in there. But it's just that the episode itself doesn't warrant all that. And that's the reason why this episode is the worst of this season in particular. You know, if I couldn't do, you know, like, this is the reason why I do these videos, you see, is that I want to have my opinion on all these seasons. And everybody has different opinions on different seasons. No doubt there is nobody out there that's going to sit there and completely agree with you, because it's not the way that society works. It's not the way the universe works. So that's the reason why I also put in the bad, because while necessarily I don't hate Buffy and I don't think Buffy is bad, there are episodes in there that just don't get enough attention from me, per se. And it's not because I have a low attention span, it's not anything like that. It's just the fact that the episodes struggle to do something that some of the big episodes, like Once More with Feeling the Body, Hush, all do. Episodes that will come up in later videos or later on today. Let's hit one more trivia and then we'll get on to the ugly of the season, something that I will be talking quite a bit about. Producer Douglas Petrie says, despite the intensely negative reaction of the fans seeing Buffy being battered about by the forces of college, and being treated so callously by Parker, they had to ride that one out until now because, you know, they didn't want to find her strength immediately in a new setting. Yeah, I get that. I get that, you know, the start of season 4 is very different to what we've had already. So it starts out, Buffy is struggling. This episode definitely pushes that idea. But, you know, she's a slayer. I get that, yes, everybody that comes to a new job, when you start a new school, when you start a new job, you know, something new in your life, you are not going to get on your feet straight away. I understand that, and it's very realistic, and I like that. I like the fact that they've put it in there. But when you're a slayer, and there's a certain responsibility, I think, you know, don't let, you know, just do it better. That's all I'm saying. Just do it better. That's all I want to say. So we are going to now move on to what is the ugly of the series, and then I'll give my series review. I'm not going to have an overall talk of the series. There are some episodes that I am going to point out. We are getting quite deep into this video already, and I wanted to get season 4 out of the way in the first 10 to 8 minutes, and that's not happening. But anyway, the ugly side of this series, the worst part of not only this season, but the whole series in general, the Initiative. I hate the Initiative. I hate the Initiative story. Not very keen on Riley. It's just the only thing I dislike about Buffy. Now, I understand that in a universe like this, you are going to have a government involved. There is no doubt about it. There is going to be some kind of government involved when it comes to these things. That they do not understand quite what it is that they're dealing with. That's the instance with this episode, with this series, actually, is that the Initiative is the issue. Not, you know, you got the problem, and you got the way of solving the problem. The Initiative are not the way of solving the problem. The Initiative are the problem and become the problem, and that's the problem that I have with the Initiative. They don't do anything useful in the series And for me, I think they're just quite throwaway, except for one particular part, which is obviously making Spike a little bit docile with the chip. I think that's something that is well written within the show. But this particular part, for me, no. The initiative, I just can't stand those storylines, and some of the episodes are affected because of it. The old Adam thing, it's just disappointing. It's disappointing from Buffy, it's disappointing from a writing point of view, and it's just something that I do not enjoy. Now, I understand there might be people out there who are completely opposite than me and enjoy the initiative storyline. I'm not going to hate on you. Everyone has their own opinion. I can respect your opinion if you like it. I do not like it, and that is a simple fact. We are going to end it with season 4 for now. So yeah, let's talk about the series in general for a little bit, but I think that the last episode is very underrated. So yeah, let's just talk about the series in general for a little bit, and I want to just say that the last episode is very underrated in my opinion. Restless was almost at the top spot. Hush beat it out of the park, to be fair. But Restless deserves to be higher than it does on the list of Buffy episodes. I just think it's really underrated, and you know, everybody disses on it because like the season has already technically ended and this is our last episode. But I think because of the ramifications and what's coming ahead, that it makes more sense to do this episode now rather than at the start of the next season, because this is the consequences of them doing the spell to bring about, you know, the end of Adam, and this is sort of part of those consequences, and putting that at the start of the next season, while the start of the next season is not one I enjoy. It's definitely, you know, it's definitely something that needs to be at the end of the season. Makes sense, and I think it just slightly make the season better by having this episode come in at the end. So I really enjoy that. Not a lot to talk about in season 4. I think, you know, the Spike chip thing that comes into play is very enjoyable, and I think, well, you know, it continues on from there. But I do think season 4 is one of the weaker seasons. However, due to episodes like Hush and like Restless, in my opinion, it's a 6 out of 10. I cannot give it any higher. Those lower 4 marks are all because of the initiative, because of Riley, because of all of these different characters that we got that are boring as fuck. But again, just my opinion. So yeah, season 4, 6 out of 10. Now we are getting on to season 5. Season 5 is a brilliant season. Brilliant villain. You know, it's got a brilliant villain, it's got a brilliant story, it's got amazing plot lines and twists. Brilliant. There is nothing wrong with season 5. Yes, you get some weaker episodes, something that we'll get to in a bit, but we're going to start with the best of Buffy here. This episode is one that warms your heart in the wrong way because you are crying your eyes out, and that is the body. Of course, we are starting with the good, the bad, the ugly, as we always do, and we are starting with the body. You know, it's on par with Ush. It is slightly better than Ush. This episode, when it first aired, oh my god, was it shock factor. But upon re-watching it, you know, when you first watch it, it's shocking more than anything else. It's a good episode, don't get me wrong, there is no way I will ever say that this episode is bad. However, don't worry, I'm just getting the trivia ready for you. However, when you first watch the episode, it is pure shock factor. when you rewatch it, you start to notice more things. You start to, notice the fact that there's no music during the episode. You notice the fact that it's all the core characters. You also notice the one thing that shocked me, and I think it does work well within the episode, that he's not in it, is that Spike is nowhere to be seen in this episode. Spike has become a very much key character this season. And for this episode, I think they just decided that, Spike needed to be off doing his own thing. Definitely makes sense for Spike not to show up until the next episode, where they're sort of dealing with the aftermath of it. But this episode is dealing with it directly. The acting in this episode is pure brilliance. Sarah Michelle Gellar's performance in this episode, wow, she deserves an Oscar for the episode. It is really much, it's very much a difficult episode. We are there with Buffy in this moment. Joyce is such a lovable character, and when Buffy finds her dead on the sofa, it's so upsetting to watch. And she just stops herself for a moment and goes, "Mommy?" And it's a killer. It's a killer. This episode, there is so much to talk about this episode. The way that Anya sort of acts like the child in this situation. She doesn't quite know how to deal with it, and she doesn't quite know what is going on. She doesn't understand it. She's not human at the end of the day. She is demon. Or part demon, or past demon at this point. Ex-demon, that's the words that they use. She's an ex-vengeance demon. She doesn't understand why it is that everyone's upset. She doesn't understand how to deal with it. And I think there's always that sort of child that is sort of like, what's going on? Like, why is everybody here? Why am I seeing people that I barely see? There's a lot of stuff going on. Willow is the one that sort of cares so much to the point of which that she doesn't want to wear anything disrespectful. But she feels like she should wear something that maybe like Joyce would have wanted her to wear and stuff like that. There's all these little details. Xander is the angry side. Every single character sort of takes over a certain aspect of what people deal with when death comes along. You get Xander is the angry side. You got Anya as the sort of non-understanding child. Willow is the sort of care-bearing sort of thing. Like, she cares what she looks like, but for the point at which, for Joyce's sake. And then of course you've got Buffy, who is Buffy and Dawn are sort of like opposites. Dawn wants to see Joyce one last time. She wants to get a chance to say goodbye to her mom. Whereas Buffy is sort of in shock, and she's upset, and she's sort of like trying to get things done, but at the same time she struggles. There's always somebody in the family that does that. And then there's Giles, who is sort of the one that takes over. And he's the one that sort of becomes the parent in this moment, and I think he does it well. He's always done it well to make himself look like a parent, and he does it well here. Also, Tara is sort of that supportive person that is a little bit of an outsider. I don't like to use the words outsider for Tara, because I don't necessarily think she's an outsider, but in this episode it sort of points out that she's the outsider who's just there comforting, trying to be there for everybody. She has a moment with Anya, which is quite nice. She's there for Xander as well, and she's there for Willow primarily, and then of course she's there for Buffy as well. She's like this one that sort of has experienced this before, so she knows what everyone's sort of going through. She knows what Buffy and Dawn are going through, and she's able to sort of put a story forward. Something which, again, you always get that one person or that one friend or that one family member who's like, I know what you're going through, I know how bad this is, I can help, kindness, there's always, all of these things always come up in Death, and I think that is where it's really well written, that they put all these little things in. So we're going to get into the trivia of this episode now, something which I'm actually quite, interested in. According to the Joss Whedon's DVD commentary, the episode begins with a flashback of the gang's Christmas dinner, because he didn't want the cast and crew or credits to appear over the main scene of Buffy finding her mom. That's really good. Came up with a scene. I always assumed that it was maybe what Joyce wanted, that maybe it was sort of like a dream sequence. Like Joyce is where she is now. She's happy. She's in heaven. She's got everybody around her that she loves. That kind of thing. However, this confirms now that it is actually just that it was a previous Christmas dinner that we never saw before. Very smart of Joyce to, very smart of Josh, not Joyce. Josh to incorporate a scene where nothing interrupts Joyce's body, nothing interrupts anything during this episode, and that includes the cast for the episode and the directors and who wrote it. To go through this scene, it's very smart that they don't want nothing to distract you from these scenes. Joss Whedon wanted the scenes to be long, which is why there are sort of 4 scenes other than the Christmas scene. Whedon has stated that he wanted to capture how the time feels stuck when grief strikes. So there's no music, because Whedon said that music is a comfort to the audience. Yeah, he's right that, when somebody dies and you're grieving, that first day is the longest day of your life. Especially if there's somebody that you love so much. It's the worst day of your life. And that's something that is portrayed very well in this episode. The episode also features only diegetic sound, so Joss Whedon explained that music comforts the audience, and he wanted this episode to be touching and horrifying at the same time. So yeah, like the diegetic, I can't quite say that word. I think it's diegetic or diegetic. It's sound that is basically true. So it's like if I were to play music from my laptop now, that's diegetic sound. Whereas if I were to put a song over the video, that's music coming from a different source. So it's always sourced from the original place, like it comes from. Joss Whedon has said that throughout her time as Joyce's body during the filming of the episode, Christine Sutherland only blinked on camera once, which was taken out using CGI. That's quite impressive. You see all these scenes with people that are dead and they never blink, or or they do blink and you see it. There's always, it's either one or the other. In this instance, they took it out so that it would be feeling, it would take you out the experience if you saw her blink. So that's quite interesting that she was able not to blink except for once. But it's brilliant. It's a brilliant episode. So yeah, I've said why I love this episode and why there are key parts of it that make Buffy brilliant. This is the best episode we get in this season. It's probably one of the best that we ever get in the series, and it's actually one of the best ever TV episodes that will ever be. I don't think anything's going to ever beat out the body. That sounds really wrong, but yeah, I don't think anything will ever beat this episode. So we are going to move on to the first episode that I dislike, and I've just told you what episode it is. It is the first episode. It is the Buffy Dracula episode that I absolutely dislike. I'm not going to get into trivia. I'm just going to give you why I don't like it. There is a lot of reminiscence from season 4, which I think it sort of just bleeds into. Riley's still around. There's just a lot to dislike from this episode. I think that it's a weak opening episode. I think we've got some really strong opening episodes before, and I think this one is very weak, and I don't like it whatsoever. I don't want to talk about it. The Buffy v Dracula problem has always been that, Buffy is meant to be drenched in realism. There are realistic moments in this series, and yet we get this stupid Dracula episode. Why? Were they struggling to start out? Maybe that's in the trivia, but I'm not getting into it. It's the worst episode of this season. There are some half-decent episodes later on. You do get some really bad episodes as well later on, but for me this is just the worst of the worst. And of course we get to the ugly side of the series, which is things like Giles killing a man, which is I think is interesting. I don't mean this is a bad thing. Sometimes the ugly stuff is not necessarily bad things, but it's interesting to see that Giles is willing to kill a man in order to save Buffy's humanity and to make it so that Buffy doesn't have to do it. That's what I like about the series, that Giles always sort of makes these hard, dark decisions for Buffy, but eventually it's one of the reasons why he had to leave. I think this is just the one reason why he feels like he has to leave at the end of the season, later on in the series, is because him sticking around has made him kill a man. It's dark, but it's well written and it's well performed by Anthony Head. But it's an ugly moment because it's like Giles, this man that we've learned to grow up with, is very much a father figure to Buffy. And to a lot of other characters, he's kind of a father figure. And yet, he's willing to do something like this, and I think it's very nice and it's very good. But at the same time, it sort of feels like, where are you going with this? Is Giles going to be a problem later on? No, not necessarily. I mean, he says some nasty things to Willow later on in the series, season 6. But, yeah, no, I just don't feel like that. So, yeah, that is why, that is one of the ugly things. Another thing that I think I want to bring up as well is the Tara thing. Poor Tara, she feels like such an outsider throughout this series. And this just pushes her even further out because she's hurt. She's going through things mentally because of Glory and what Glory did. By the way, Glory is an absolute brilliant character in the series. She's a brilliant villain. I like the fact that they brought in the god side of things. I like the fact that it's a woman. Buffy finally has to take down a woman, and it's not Faith. Kind of a nice change of pace from having these manly men sort of be villains, like the Master, like Angelus, like the Maya, these big bads. And obviously we do get down to business that Willow is the next big bad, and then the next big bad is somebody that can be anybody. So it's sort of like they up the game every season here on out. Yeah, I just feel sorry for Tara in these moments, in these episodes. I know I haven't talked about season 5 a lot. It's because we are getting on quite a lot with these this episode, this video. So I'm going to start wrapping it up soon. Season 5 is absolutely brilliant. It's got some brilliant episodes. It's got some brilliant moments. But again, Buffy v Dracula is just disappointing. However, Buffy v Dracula episode does not ruin the series for me at all. It doesn't ruin this season in particular. It's just a weak episode. For me, season 5 is probably the strongest season because we get some stuff like introducing Dawn, Buffy and Spike. Spike's in love with Buffy. Spike, Buffy doesn't reciprocate that yet. But it's all the lead up to that. Buffy's death. There's just so much in this season. Something that I may talk about again at some point when we take a little break between seasons, even though realistically I shouldn't take a break, I should just go on with it. But yeah, and for that reason, season 5 gets a 10 out of 10 for me. There's no doubt about it. Season 5 is probably the best season of Buffy. On par with season 3 and season 2. But things slightly better thanks to episodes like The Body. So yeah, that's my video for today for Buffy. I apologise for it being a little bit rushed out with doing 2 seasons at once. Not really giving a lot of talk to a season that I think deserved it, and giving too much talk to a season that doesn't deserve it. It's kind of odd that I've done it the opposite way around than what was intended. But anyway, that's the video for today. Thank you for watching. I've been Scribber. This has been Scribber. So yeah, check out all the good stuff in the description below. And I'll see you next time. And next Saturday for season 6 of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Goodbye.
Death is your art.
You make it with your hands day after day.